Hey, welcome to the Mind Hacking Happiness Podcast. My name is Sean Webb. We're here presenting day 12 of the 45-day Mind Mastery 101 from Mind Hacking Happiness. This is a $1,000 course that we're giving to you for free, $0. If you want indefinite access to this course, which we might have to pull these videos down if we start charging for it again in the future. If you want indefinite access right now, you can go to mindhackinghappiness.com, sign up for the course. And also, if you share this course out to at least 5 people who come and mention that you sent them in the forums, then you get a chance for a big prize at the end of this program that we're putting out for free to help you manage your mind and set your internal conditions versus having to set all of your external conditions in this world, which is going a little crazy on us right now. So definitely get into that. And here is day 12. Hey, welcome to day 12 of the 45-day Mind Hacking Happiness Mind Mastery 101. I am wearing an exceptionally shiny shirt today. Is this light blue or what? This has lighting properties all of its own in this studio. Okay, let's get into it. Today is day 12. We're going to talk about and expand on how yourself plays into your EoE. We talked about that a little yesterday, but we didn't give you the details. And of course, we can't give you everything in one day because that would be way too long for you to do a 45 daily course. So I mentioned it yesterday. You might have been a little confused about it. We're going to dig into that a little bit better today. All right. So how yourself plays into your equation of emotion. Now, first, let's talk about yesterday's homework, because if you remember, we did a journaling exercise where your prompt was, I wish, and then boom, you're off and running. Here's the critical thing that you need to know. Grab your self worksheet, because in reviewing yesterday's journaling prompt and all the things that you wrote about yesterday in I wish, every one of those things that you wrote about needs to go on to your self map, generally speaking, because everything that you wish, everything that spilled out of your subconscious levels that handed it up to your consciousness, and then you wrote it on the piece of paper to empty your mind's basket and allow your subconscious levels to be heard, right? All of that stuff in there is a portion of your mind's sense of you. So definitely grab those things and think about how they fit onto your self map, because every one of those things that came out on your journaling from yesterday is something that your mind believes is a portion of you. And that's important for you to understand, important for you to review, because the better you know your mind's self, the better you know your mind's reactions about yourself, because that's all it really does. So how the self plays into your expectation or preference, or into your equation of emotion. Basically, we're going to discuss how your expectation and or preference directly maps to your self map, directly connects to your self map. But how exactly does that occur? Well, if you remember from yesterday, your equation of emotion is your expectation and or preference about something as compared to your perception about that same something equals an emotional reaction about that something, whatever it is. But they all have to be related. They all are related. You have an expectation or preference about something and then a perception about something. If it's equal, they're going to have a positive emotional reaction about that something. If it's imbalanced, it's going to have a negative emotional reaction about something. If the one or the other doesn't exist, you're not going to have an emotional reaction about that something at all. So how does it connect? How does your self map and your EP connect? Well, your EP basically is the expectation and or preference about the things on your self map. The expectation and preference from your equation of emotion comes directly from all the things that your mind is connected with, all your things, all your self items within your mind's definition of you, your mind's definition of self, the things that your mind thinks is you, automatically gets an expectation or preference connected with it. And that rule is everything on your self map must be held at status quo or increased in value. And that is basically the EP for absolutely everything. So, for instance, your mom or your grandma or somebody in your family or one of your friends, you have an expectation or preference about everything associated with your mom or grandma or one of your friends be held at status quo or better, or you have an emotional reaction about it. If one of your friends loses their job, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. that you lost your job, there's an emotional reaction connected with your friend losing their job. Or if your mom gets the bad flu or whatever it is, or one of your family members becomes ill, then your expectation about or preference about your family member is that they be held at status quo or increased in value. And now, oops, they've got some kind of a sickness or something that's happening to them, and that causes your emotional reaction based on your EP associated with your self item, whatever it is. If your job comes in jeopardy, your EP about your job is that it be held at status quo or increased in value. And if that doesn't occur, then that's why you're going to have an emotional reaction associated with your job. If you have an expectation or preference about a movie that you've really been looking forward to seeing, and the perception is the movie's great, you're going to have an emotional reaction associated with that emotional equation of emotion. If it sucks, you're going to have an emotional reaction associated with how the movie sucked compared to your expectation or preference, because a portion of your sense of self said, I hope this is a good movie. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing, right? That's an idea that your self attaches to that then gets compared to a perception about the movie. Everything in your life that you connect with a sense of self then gets compared to a perception. But where that starts is that your expectation or preference is that everything on your self map must be held at status quo or increased in value. So that creates fully 50% of your equation of emotion. Everything on your self map is an EP awaiting to be compared to a perception. So your examples, your friends, your parents, your body must be held at status quo or increased in value, or you have an emotional reaction. Your politics must be held at status quo or increased in value, or you'll have some type of emotional reaction associated if a perception doesn't match those things. The EP is about your politics, for instance. If you have a perception about your politics, an article that's written, then you'll have an emotional reaction about that article because it's connected with your politics. Right? So you have a political opinion about something and you see a headline or an article or an announcement about something that's associated with that EP. Well, if it matches that EP, then you're going to have a positive emotion reaction. If it doesn't match that EP, that's when you lose your shit. Right? So that's exactly how it works. Example number 2, if you have an EP about your job or a project at your job, you have a perception about that job or a perception about that project, whether or not those things balance or don't balance is going to create that emotional reaction about your job. But the EP is always going to be that it be held at status quo or increased in value. So that's where the EP starts, is that self item. And this has to do with homeostasis, which is basically the body's way of saying, hey, if everything's cool, we're cool. If everything's not cool, we got to do some shit. We got to change something. We got to get back to equilibrium. Well, this EP is a function of homeostasis. It's taking that thing on your self map and saying, okay, EP is that everything's cool. So everything has to be held at status quo or increased in value associated with everything on the self map. Otherwise, emotional reaction, which is your brain's automatic programming to say, hey, we got to get into action. We got to make something different. Okay. Example number 3, an expectation or preference about your body. And again, this goes directly into homeostasis, where even at a cellular level, if something goes wrong where a pathogen attacks your body, well, there's an expectation or preference that everything be cool in your body. And if the perception is that everything's not in your body, and by the way, perception is used down at the cellular level to explain the scientific process of cellular reactions. Okay, so if everything's not cool, then the body goes into, immune responses and goes and fights that pathogen or takes out that virus or whatever. This is how your body works from a macro level all the way down into the micro level. And so when there's something at issue with your body, like even if you look in the mirror and you say, my expectation or preference is that I'd be thinner, and look at me, I got 15 pounds to lose. Well, that kind of is what makes you feel sad that you got 15 pounds to lose, right? This goes into every level of your consciousness, this EP. And so when you go to the doctor, or you see something in the mirror, then you're going to have the emotional reaction associated with that thing about your body from your perception being at the doctor or looking in the mirror or whatever it is. Now, again, the more stuff you have on your self map, the more complicated your life is. And the more EPs that exist that then perceptions can come in and potentially ruin your day. And the more EPs that must be held at status quo or increased in value. So the more things that occur in the world, the more stuff you have on your self map, the more stuff can ruin your day. That's important for you to consciously acknowledge and consciously understand. Because as we start looking at our self maps and maybe potentially simplifying our self maps moving forward, or being able to change our perceptions moving forward, that's when we start to mess with the equation of emotion. You can see how changing just a couple of those variables can change your whole emotional landscape moving forward and change your life from this point forward, or from that moment forward, that you take that control. So it's important for you to understand that stuff. Your homework for today: quick journaling prompt. I want you to quick journal 10 to 15 minutes, set a timer. If you want to go 20 minutes, you can. It's okay. I love is your prompt. Start with I love, and then you're off and writing. Hope this message finds you well. Talk to you tomorrow.